Hello, and welcome to Tech Talk. My name is Matt Knight, and I am the Facilities and Training Coordinator for Access Humboldt, and I'm here with our Production Manager, Juan Carrillo, for part 2 of our video conferencing deep dive. Well, I think now we're going to move into a couple of software solutions. Everybody knows Skype, everybody knows Zoom, and Zoom has gotten its time in the spotlight, in the national spotlight here. But there are a couple of other pieces of software. Well, there's a number of other pieces of software out there that are not quite as, how can I say this? I mean, Zoom is a sort of a commercial product that everybody knows, but there are more highly specialized products for, say, people who are going to be doing podcasting, if you're going to be doing audio production, things like voiceover, or if you're going to be doing something where you're bringing in phone calls or things like that to your program or whatever you've got going. I just wanted to mention a couple that I've tested. A friend of mine and I tested a bunch of these because he works in the cartoon industry. He records dialogue for cartoons, and he is have to go a whole new way. He can't be in the room with people anymore, so he's looking for good solutions for this. And one of the two, I'm going to talk about two, and we'll throw up some screenshots to show you what they look like. The first one is a free solution, and we always like the free solutions here at Access Humboldt. And it's called Bodalgo Call, or is the name of the software, and you can find it at Bodalgo. I'll put the address down here, .com. And so this is a no sign up, no setup, direct connection software. It includes, as you'll see in the screenshot, a little camera. So it's not meant for video. It's not meant to do video. It's meant more for you can see your actors, or you can see whoever you're podcasting with while you're talking to them. It's not really meant to record. Now, one of the things it doesn't have is an onboard, in the free edition anyway, is an onboard recorder. So that would mean that you would have to use something like Audacity or Audition to record the call. And the way I've seen it used is you have both ends recording Audacity, and then you combine the files later to get the very best quality. If it becomes an issue, it might be fine. But if you want the very best pristine quality, you're going to put the two files together. The way this, and this is interesting for people who are interested in doing voiceover work, this software was created by a company that does voiceover talent. It's a voiceover talent agency. So the pay part of this, if you want to, you don't have to, but if you're interested in becoming a voiceover actor, is they will, you can pay them to look for jobs for you. So you can put up your sample, your highlight reel, as it were. They'll put that on their website, and they'll connect you. I can't vouch for how many jobs you're going to get off of something like this. They may just take your money and say, see you later. But potentially you could get work off of something like this. So interesting, but I'll go call. And then the other one is a pay service. It's called IPDiddle. Or at least that's how you pronounce it. It's ipdtl.com. And this is a voiceover radio interview that does things like ISDN. It does phone calls, so you could have somebody call directly from their iPhone or what have you. And this, again, not a video service, but it is a voiceover, a podcasting piece of software, which does include recorders, and it allows you to isolate each input. So you could record a different stream from your location of everybody on the call. So you have separate, discrete streams. And I think it starts at about $7 a month for the basic service. But it goes up from there, including to things like if you were a radio station and you want to do like on. This interests me because of our radio station. You could do call-in shows using this piece of software. So and you'll see. So it's a couple of useful softwares that I think from our short amount of testing are like the best that we have seen.
Yeah, that second one, the IP detail, that looked really interesting to me. I was kind of looking through some of their stuff yesterday and watching some videos about it, and the capabilities that they're kind of showcasing, it seemed really cool, and it seems like they're prioritizing quality, like audio quality above everything else, and having the web-based recorder seemed really cool, and you can, select the bit rate that you want to record in, and there's a lot of functionality built into their web application. So I know that these are two options that are they're about sound, so it's mostly for audio podcasting, but I think they're worth a look if that's what you're doing anyways. And I think how a lot of people do assemble their podcasts, when they're working remotely, is that it is part of their workflow to just record locally anyway. So everyone records their own stem essentially. So I'll have my own isolated recording of me, and then they just Dropbox the files to each other, and they get assembled in post. And and I would encourage you to, if you are doing audio podcasting, or if you're doing even a video podcasting, to kind of get into the habit of doing that anyways, as it's useful as a backup recording, if anything else. The quick and dirty way of doing it now is just to record the way Matt and I are doing it, which is just have your platform record it for you, and then you don't have to really worry about assembling it. If the quality is acceptable to you, that's an easy way of doing it. But if you really want to get the best out of it, then record your own discrete tracks individually using something like Audacity, as Matt mentioned, and then assemble it in post.
All right, last but not least, we're going to go, we got some member questions here. So I'm going to throw them at Juan, and Juan is going to do his best to answer them. And the first one of them comes from a longtime contributor, Marvin, and he's got 3 questions. Number 1, which software, and he's talking about video conferencing software, I'm sure, is user-friendly? Which software is more secure? And which software would you recommend on which operating system?
Right. So Marvin, I'll preface this by saying that we're not professionals, but we'll give it our best shot at answering most of these questions, and with using our experience with most of these platforms, and but really if you can, just do what we do. We just jump on and try different things. We kind of make up our mind from there. But so as far as user friendly, it really depends on the usage. Like if it's just for personal use, it's probably going to be something like FaceTime or Google Duo. Like if you're just wanting to do video conferencing with friends and family, it doesn't get much easier than what's already on your phone, or possibly on your laptop. If you have Apple devices, FaceTime is the easiest one. If you don't have Apple devices, but you have a laptop or maybe an Android phone, Google Duo is kind of like the equivalent, and it makes it pretty easy to dial someone up and start a one-on-one video call. I think they'll scale up to 8, 16, maybe even up to 32 people if you wanted to have a larger party. If you're trying to do more than just having a video call, like if you're trying to do presentations and whatnot, then you're going to be looking at other platforms such as Skype and Zoom. As far as ease of use, it really kind of, that's a difficult question to answer, because everyone's comfort level or aptitude to work with computers is slightly different, right? So I wouldn't say that they're super easy to use because they all require a little bit of like you being comfortable just toggling a few settings here and there. So, if you're not comfortable with computers in general, you might not find them to be super user friendly. But if you have like, basic knowledge, like say you hop on and do like email and you can fire up a web browser, more than likely you can stumble around getting a Zoom call or logging onto a Zoom call or onto a Skype call. They've tried to make it a little bit easier for people who are just not really into or not super tech savvy or just not super familiar with computers by allowing them to just click on a link and it'll launch a web browser and then it kind of guides you through the steps of like activating your camera if you have a camera, activating your microphone if you have a microphone. But I have still
Let
seen
me
people.
stop you there, Juan, and say that I think what we're talking about, and I think you're talking about Zoom, and one of the beauty things about that is, let's say you want to involve somebody who hasn't downloaded the software, maybe doesn't know anything about any of this stuff, but they do have a computer that has a camera and a microphone.
Right.
You could just send them a link, and it will open up in their computer without having to go through a lot of hoops. So from that standpoint, I think as opposed to Skype, where I think both ends have to have the Skype software, or maybe I'm wrong about that.
So to me, Skype and Zoom, they kind of keep they're pretty even pace with features. So Skype recently, or maybe not too recently, but I discovered that you can just send them a link and they have a web version of Skype. You don't have to install anything. And
it used to be that way, but yeah. Keep up with one another. I can see that.
Yeah. And both of them, say you have if you have a recurring meeting, like you can have just like one link that people come back to. And that way it doesn't create a new link. People can just click on the same link and just come back. If it's a weekly one, you can just have that be a recurring one. Like you and I initiated this Skype call on using the same thread conversation that we've had in the past. Like I didn't have to create a new thread or anything like that. So yeah, they've tried to make it easier to use, and I actually find that they're easier to use on cell phones than they are on desktops, because on the cell phone it's kind of a given. Your phone has already a camera built in and a microphone built in, and so you don't really have to map anything. It already knows that hardware is there. You just need to give it permission when it prompts you to. Where on a laptop, some laptops don't have cameras, some laptops don't have microphones, and we've run across this issue throughout the last few weeks where someone thought they had a microphone on, and it's really weird. Or maybe the microphone doesn't work, like the camera works, but the microphone doesn't work, and they all of a sudden have no way of speaking. So then they have to use the dial-in feature, and to me that's confusing. Having to do the call in on your phone while you're using the laptop for the camera. I mean, it's convenient for some people who are put in that position, but it gets a little bit weird.
Yeah. So this is from Steven. It would be nice if you could talk about or mention Jitsi. People should know that there's an open source video conferencing. I should talk into the mic. There's an open source video conferencing that doesn't require you to submit or provide anything to start or join a video conference, which it kind of sounds like maybe Skype and Zoom has that covered. That does not record or store your data and is generally more secure than Zoom or Skype when installed on a private server. So installing Jitsi on a private server requires a bit of know-how and access to a server, but is a good choice for people with technical experience. So.
Right. So when I read this question and I looked into it, I wasn't sure how accessible this platform was going to be for, people that just kind of want to dial up someone and, do a video call. But so from when I went to their page and I was kind of looking at it, it looks like it's you can use it in one of two ways. You can install it in a server and kind of do your own, like roll your own, essentially like your own little platform, or you can use like a traditional app where you can download it on your phone, and you can connect with another user. And I think that would use what I'm assuming is the Jitsi servers, and I might be wrong in this. But I think you can use it as a more traditional service where you don't have to install anything on a server. I think you just run it as an application. And this was the other app that I thought looked really promising and really interesting, that I do want to look into it some more. And maybe I didn't have time to really dive into it, and maybe at the next Tech Talk I can come back with like an update on this. But it did look like it's something that you can kind of that you can maybe customize a little bit to what you're trying to do. It doesn't offer recording feature, so you can't record the conversation, but you can stream it out. Their suggestion was, or I guess how they address that is like if you want a recording, then you would use the built-in streaming functionality and then have YouTube record it for you. I was more excited that you actually get to stream from within the app. Yeah. That's incredible. Like, you know, in Zoom, you have to pay for that function. I believe you have to be in one of the more higher paid plans to be able to stream out. But in this one, you can actually broadcast out to YouTube. So I can imagine, you know, how you can use this platform to send out a live stream somewhere. You know, you can produce a show, or you can have a talk show, or, you know, there's a bunch of other things that you might be able to leverage and then have it send out straight to YouTube. That's pretty sweet. So it seems really interesting. I'm gonna try to look into it a little bit more, and then try to test it out and see what it can actually do.
Yeah, the one thing I was remiss in is whether it costs money or not.
So as far as I can tell, that it doesn't. The basic functionality doesn't. It's an open source project. I don't. Yeah. So I don't. Honestly, I don't know. This might be one of those projects that, you know. And if
we'll put a link down, and you can go and do your own investigation. But it does sound intriguing, the streaming part especially.
Yeah, for sure. So I'll report back on that next time.
Okay. Then next, I have a note from Shoshana. She is asking a very kind of roundabout question, but I think what I get from her question is she is a performance artist, and she's looking for a good platform for performing that she can get, you know, out to an audience. And I can't really tell if she's looking for that platform, or if she's looking for the production platform or the platform itself. But do you have any thoughts about maybe performance? People are doing performances, and what the best way to go might be for somebody like that?
Yeah. So you know, she mentions, I believe in her question. I assume that she probably has a little bit of experience with Facebook and Zoom. So something that's outside of Facebook, because Facebook is probably the easiest platform to stream to, that everyone has access to. And, you know, I wouldn't rule it out as a platform to distribute performance art, just because it's easy to share. You know, you kind of have your built-in audience.
Right.
And the issue with Facebook, and actually most of the social media platforms, is going to come down to copyright music. So if your performance relies on you know, copyrighted music, at one point or another, you're going to run into the issue of having your stream flagged or pulled, if you haven't already. And that is something that a lot of people are struggling with. And it's just because the platforms were not designed for that. You know, they weren't designed to have people performing using copyrighted music. And now that everyone's kind of rushing, we don't have any outlets. Like, we don't have an actual venue. Most, you know, in the way it used to be, you used to go to a venue. The venue used to pay for the ASCAP license or the BMI license, and so you were covered, right? Well, now we don't have venues to go to perform, so now people are migrating to you know, digital platforms. Well, those companies are not paying those fees, and so now you have the record labels who are, you know, coming down on them and being like, well, you know, you can't be streaming, you know, content that has our copyrighted music without paying us. So you have to pay us or take down the stream. And so they're opting to take down the streams instead. So I've run into this with my personal streaming, where I do streams on Facebook, some DJ streams, and it's a very it's one of those things that no one really knows how it works, and I have my kind of thoughts on it, which I think the bigger, the more people are watching your stream, the more likely it is that the algorithm will take your stream down. I've streamed up to an hour, 2 hours without getting pulled, and other times I've streamed about 30 minutes and have gotten pulled. There's anecdotal evidence that if you have like a huge audience and you're kind of you have a bit of pull, if you're like an influencer, that they let you get away with more stuff. But I mean, I don't know, that's more hearsay in my part. Like, I see huge DJs that DJ on YouTube without getting pulled, and I'm assuming they must have some kind of deal worked out with them. But we're talking about like huge artists,
I'm surprised that they haven't offered some sort of license, or maybe they have, we just don't know about it. But that's easy to use, and maybe you pay a flat fee for an hour's worth of copywritten music, and they sort it out for you. But maybe making it easy is not the point.
I haven't
keep it all locked up is the point, probably.
Yeah, so I haven't seen anything like that for Facebook or YouTube, and in fact, like, I was just watching some other video of someone who supposedly they had talked to people on Instagram and they had gotten the okay to do this event on Instagram, and they ended up getting pulled anyways. And so, they were really frustrated with that. The one digital platform that I know that you can do this legally is Mixcloud, and that's a new thing. So Mixcloud is a place where you can upload mixes. Like, it's almost kind of like a radio mix, right? Like, and a lot of radio people actually would upload shows on Mixcloud. And so recently, because of the influx of people, doing live streams with music in it, they created their own video platform, and it's in beta right now. They're doing a 3-month free trial so you can try it out. But it's it's just not as developed because it was never intended to be a video platform. It's a music platform, for podcasts and for music shows. But they did work out. They did work out a deal, and it'll cost $15 a month once you actually start paying for it. So it's only worth it if you're producing content on the regular. If you're only doing it every once in a while, more than likely it's not going to be worth it. But what that does do is that it pays for the fees, so your live stream won't get pulled, right? Okay. But it's not storing your stream. It's only showing the stream live. So it's not going to archive your stream. So you'd want to record that locally and then archive it somewhere if you want to. But you can upload afterwards. You can upload the audio version of that stream if you want to. So for Shoshana's case, this platform might not be the best place for because she won't be able to archive her video stream for it. But if she just wants to do a live stream without getting pulled, that might be a location where she could do that, except that it's just kind of like, it's just like during the live stream, it doesn't really have a life afterwards. I would imagine that the companies at some point are going to maybe offer some kind of deal for people that, for performers to be able to cover those fees. It amazes me that this hasn't happened yet. I mean, it's, but right now we're kind of at the whim of like the algorithm and when we get pulled. So if you have original performances, you're probably okay. But if your art depends on music, and a lot of people's art depends on copyrighted music, then we're just gonna have to roll the dice, I guess.
Yeah. Now, this wasn't one of the questions, but somebody asked me a question the other day about movie clips, and they wanted to do a show that was commentary about movie clips, and whether that would be something that would get pulled, and I don't have an answer for that, but it's an interesting question whether they're that's the same.
Are we talking about a show that would feature movie clips in in a live stream setting, or just a produced show that would get uploaded?
I think it's more of a produced show that would get uploaded.
Okay. So, 'cause I've actually have never come across an instance where someone would do a live stream where they were commentating on, say, a movie or something, like a live commentary. I have not come across that. But if you're producing a show and then uploading up to, like, Facebook or YouTube, and it contains movie clips, I mean, it we'd have to kind of look into the fair use policies,
And to me, I mean, fair use is, for people who don't know, is that there are supposed to be exceptions to copyright law. One of them is fair use, and fair use often means, like, let's say you want to talk about modern jazz, and so you need to play a clip of John Coltrane to explain to people what modern jazz is and what John Coltrane sounds like. And so it's different than entertaining people with a whole, like a Love Supreme, the entire song. It's
Right.
more like a snip, and notice his tone and notice how he, does X, Y, Z, but even then, I mean, we talked about algorithms. An algorithm will flag that if it's too long, and even though it's totally fair use, and you will get a copyright strike. YouTube comes to mind, especially for things like that. So even though, and the idea is, like, fight us about it. What are you going to do? What are you going to do to YouTube, right?
Yeah.
They say, see you later, sucker, and you're kind of at their mercy, I guess, is the thing. But my advice to him was stay away from Disney. Stay away from anything that has to do with Disney, because they will send out a team of attorneys and break both your legs. So, but anyway, just an interesting question that I didn't really have an answer to. I know what fair use is. Whether that applies in the modern world anymore, I'm not sure.
I would recommend that they look into the policies as written out within the platform that they're trying to deliver that in. So if they're trying to grow, say, create and grow a YouTube channel, like, to really look into what their policies of fair use are, because I think that their definition of fair use might be slightly different, to protect themselves. So they, where fair use might dictate that you can play, I don't know, 30 seconds worth of a clip or 20 seconds or something, they might have a little more stringent a definition of that. I mean, I know that, like, I consume a lot of YouTube content. Like, so I'm familiar with, like, people who, review movies or review, music or albums or whatnot. And, I've seen them struggle with their own stuff, and sometimes they get up, they're like, I don't know why my video got flagged. But they still, they often do show clips. I do notice that a lot of times those clips don't have audio. So they'll show, like, they'll show scenes of a movie, but it might not have audio on it, because they're like, well, this might get pulled. So
That useful, I guess.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think, what was it? I vaguely remember the fair use definition, but if it's, like, for satirical, educational, or analytical reasons, you're supposed to be able to use up to a percentage of it.
Right. Well, there was the famous case that went all the way to the Supreme Court of Two Live Crew, which was a rap group who took Roy Orbison's song "Oh Pretty Woman" and did a parody using that. And this is really pre the internet age, or just the dawn of the internet age, and they took it all the way to Supreme Court and won. Right.
Oh, wow.
But whether that pencils out in 2020 or not, I'd be really surprised if it did. Weird Al Yankovic, who does a lot of parodies, well, he just pays for it. He just circumvents that by paying for the usage of the songs, and so he, which is another thing you can do. You can go to Harry Fox Agency and you could get a license for a lot of this material, and you can pay for it. And then, chances are you'll get left alone at that point. But it's going to be an expensive proposition if you're doing a regular show. So that brings us back down to the last question, and this one is from Elaine. And Elaine says, I've heard a lot of bad things about Zoom related to privacy. Recently, Mozilla sent out a post that although Zoom said it had improved its practices, that only relates to customers with paying accounts. Most people who use Zoom still use the free account, which is apparently buggy as ever. I try to protect my privacy wherever possible. Should I avoid using Zoom, and what are the risks and ways to minimize or avoid them? Big, huge question, Juan. Not a softball served up to you. That's the big one.
So, when it comes to privacy, I feel like even when they're doing good, they're kind of not doing enough, right? I mean, we always hear about these privacy breaches like that happened a year ago that we didn't know about. And so, I think it's best to follow your intuition. If you don't feel comfortable, if maybe something strikes you wrong or about like a particular platform, then maybe it's best to stay off of it. For the way I guess that I kind of make my decision is that I know that nothing is free. Even the free version of Zoom, I know that I'm not really getting it for free. They're getting data from me. They're getting analytics. They're getting like all this stuff from me, and so I have to be comfortable with giving that up, to use that free service. And so I take that, I take that along with that. So I know that that's what I'm getting myself into. If you're not comfortable with that, then I would probably say maybe don't get on that platform. I know that they were under a lot of scrutiny because, I mean, their platform was never designed for, thousands and thousands of people doing random things that were not meetings. So they did. There was security holes because now all of a sudden you have teenagers being teenagers and trying to Zoom bomb people. But from everything that I've read recently is that Zoom ended up walking back that announcement about the free versions not using end-to-end encryption. So they are going to use end-to-end encryption with the free users as well, but that's not going to start until July, and that's going to actually be in beta. So so if that's super important to you, you might want to stay off of that platform until it actually gets implemented throughout. So that'll probably be later in the summer. End-to-end encryption is kind of like the big thing that you kind of want in your services because it does encrypt the signal from one user to the other user. So there shouldn't be any way for anyone in the middle to be able to intercept that data and capture it and see what it is. I'm not a security expert, but that's my basic understanding of it. The reason I think that end-to-end encryption was not implemented before, as from what I read, was that it makes it harder for companies to keep people accountable, I guess. So if you offer end-to-end encryption, you need more information from people in order to enable that, because Zoom would be on the hook if something weird happens. So if there's something happens, then they're using their service, and say the FBI gets involved, and then they're asking for that information. Well, they don't know what that information is because it's encrypted, but then they at least need to be able to provide who was using that service, and so that's what they would need that information. And so they
want to use for nefarious purposes like child pornography or something. So
correct.
They have to have a certain level of knowing who their users are.
Yeah, and so then it becomes a debate of convenience versus security. Right. So if you don't implement that security, it makes it more convenient because then people don't have to give you a bunch of information. They could just provide an email address and they don't even have to follow up more than that, just an email address to sign up and get an account. But then you don't have that encryption, so that if something did happen, they could look at that data and figure out what was going on. So that makes it convenient.
Yeah.
If you want that encryption, well, then now that we're going to encrypt this data, now we need to know more about you. We need to know more information about you, your full name. You need to be verify who you are. So it comes with trade-offs. So that's really what we need to understand, is that we could have encryption, but then we have to give up more information on the front end, or we cannot have that encryption and not give up that information in the front end. So it's one or the other.
I noticed that Jitsi is touting, whether they're any better or not, I don't know, but they tout their encryption software as being a big deal. So I don't know whether it's any better than Zoom or Skype or anybody else, but they
I don't know either.
A fairly big noise about it on their webpage.
Yeah, I don't know. It would be interesting. And like I said, I just know the very basics of encryption. So I don't know. I know there's different forms of encryption. I don't know which one is better than the other. And so it is interesting. I guess Jitsi, because it is a open source program, and it can be modified and forked. I don't know if that would become an issue for them, because it seems like it's more of a decentralized, it's not really like one organization. I don't think that's, because they offer, so we could, I think, download that program, make modifications, brand it as our own, and we can roll our own. All of a sudden we have our own kind of platform that's it's run on top of Jitsi, but so I don't know how that's any better or worse than Zoom. I mean, I guess because you're not giving your data to a third party, maybe, I guess. Yeah.
Well, I like to say the only really secure telecommunications device that's also free are 2 cans and a string.
Right. Yeah, we can go that way.
Even that I wouldn't totally trust, but well, that's going to be, I think that's all we've got time for. That was a lot. And I just want to say, Access Humboldt is here to try and help you with these problems. You can always send us an email at info@accesshumboldt.net and ask a question. We may or may not be able to answer. We can always dig for it and see if we can come up with it. And then be sure and check out accesshumboldt.net, look at our website, and you can see what we've been up to and all the things that we offer to Humboldt County. And Juan, thanks so much for being here. That was a lot, but I appreciate you hanging with us, and we'll do it again in 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, for sure. That was a lot of fun. Thank you.